Well, here we are. Make a change.
Order in the court. All right, guys, so we are now live on YouTube, and to be respectful of everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and get started. I think most of you probably know me, but I'm Lacey Jones, the Executive Director for the United Way of Perry County. I am also co-chair of Strong Families, Strong Communities, and one of the founding members of the Mental Health Coalition. So you might be wondering why we're here tonight, and I'm going to get to that, but first I want to remind you to pass around the clipboard. I'm looking at my phone. I promise I'm not texting. I have my notes on there, and I don't want to forget anything. So we just want to thank you for joining us tonight for our first town hall. We ask that you hold all questions and comments until the very end. So we want to give our presenters a chance to present their data, to do their speaking, and then we're going to open it up for questions, comments, concerns after that. And we ask that you please keep it respectful. We want to really make an impact here, and the only way that we can do that is to be respectful of one another. So please keep that in mind. And we also realize that we don't have all the data. We know there's data out there that we haven't collected yet, and we would love to have that. So at the end, if you see something and you're like, oh, I have more data on that, please let us know. This is not a certain group of people that can only contribute. We want whatever we can get from anyone. So just at the end, if you have something, feel free to share it with us. So the purpose of this town hall, when we met as the Mental Health Coalition, we were like, what is the purpose of this? And really it's to share data and local stories that some people might not be aware of. I was not aware of it until I took the role as director of United Way. We also want to raise awareness throughout the community, anywhere, everywhere. We want to get as loud as we can about the mental health struggles, the substance abuse struggles here in Perry County. We want to get more community leaders involved because we all know that there's only so much you can do, but if you don't have decision-making authority, what can we do? So we want to get more community leaders involved, and we want to rally together as a community, be there for each and every single person. And so that brought me to, what does Pick Perry really mean? We always say, pick Perry, but what does that mean? To me, what it should mean is to pick every person in every walk of life, embracing their trauma, their struggles, the beauty, the pain, and holding their hand and really seeing them, helping, loving, and healing together. Now more than ever, we need to come together as a community to meet people where they are and wrap them in support. We only grow by seeing, really seeing the needs, finding the gaps, and doing whatever it takes to fill them. So let's dive into the nitty-gritty of why we're here and what the Mental Health Coalition is all about. All right, so Emily and I, would you like to stand, ma'am? This is Miss Emily Alvey. She is the director of the Community Foundation here in Perry County, and we are co-chairs of Strong Families, Strong Communities. We just took that role over from actually Tara and Jennifer Mitchell. So Strong Families, Strong Communities, in case you're not aware, was formed in response to the overwhelming need of foster care in Perry County. So we were looking for the whys. Why is this happening? What do we need to do? That's why it was formed. Now we have come to the point where we have work groups. We have a trauma responsive work group and substance use and recovery work group. We also, all of the agencies, so just off the top of my head, Catholic Charities, Life Springs, the hospital, the schools are all there, and monthly we can say, hey, what do you have going on? What initiatives are you working on? How can we help? So it's really kind of a hub for all of us to be on the same page, know what's going on, and try to tackle the needs of our community. Let me make sure I did not miss anything before we go forward. Okay, yeah, so like I said, Emily and I are co-chairs of Strong Families, Strong Communities, and she's going to kind of talk to you about where we've been and where we're trying to go with Strong Families, Strong Communities, and how that ties into tonight and the Mental Health Coalition.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay. So with Strong Families, Strong Communities, as Lacey mentioned, we bring together all the different agencies and facilitate the discussions and really working alongside with the Mental Health Coalition to see what they are doing, and then to how can we do the work, and how can we help support them and rally behind them. So with Strong Families, Strong Communities, we're looking at those larger scale changes, and how can we kind of move that needle just a little bit further.
All right, so this next graphic, when we were meeting the other day, Celia and I kind of were talking about the cycle and mental health, substance abuse. It's all a cycle. You know, you might be like, okay, why are we talking about trauma one minute? The next minute we're talking about mental health. The next minute we're talking about substance abuse, homelessness. Well, it's because it all goes hand in hand. We don't really know, like, what came first. Who knows? All that matters is it's all here, and it's all going to continue to repeat until we do something about it. So we just really like that this kind of shows, I'm going to get a little closer because I can't see really well, but alcohol and other drug use behaviors, compulsive eating, gambling can lead to lower states of anxiety and distress, which leads to increased use of substances or behavior to regulate distress, which leads to substance use disorders, other behavioral addictions, PTSD, mental health symptoms, anxiety, all of the things. So it's a vicious cycle between mental health, substance abuse, and other addictive behaviors. And so we have slides. We're not going to read to you guys every little thing that's on our slides. We have copies of them, so if you want to read more about it or you have questions, you can definitely ask us about those at the end. And this was a graphic that we found that is, again, it's more of the ripple effect of mental illness. So what comes from mental illness? It affects each person. It affects the families. It connects the community. I would say if I asked you to raise your hand if you've been impacted by substance abuse, probably every person in this room would raise their hand. If I said, have you been impacted by some sort of trauma, whether it be sexual abuse, whether it be domestic abuse, anything like that, probably everyone in here is going to raise their hand. So it's just that vicious cycle, and we really want to drive that home, that this just is going to keep going and going and going until we can really get to the root cause of it. So how the Mental Health Coalition came around, I apologize, I'm going to have to pull up some of my notes so I don't leave anything out. A group had heard about the issues that we're having in Fishers, Indiana, which was their high suicide rate. Is that correct? Okay, so they had a high suicide rate. They couldn't understand why, wanted to get to the root cause of it. And their mayor, Mayor Fadness, went to the leaders in the community and he said, guys, we got to fix this. I can't do it alone. You know, these people can't do it. Like, we all have to come together. We need leaders. We need everybody in every walk of life. Let's come together and let's figure this thing out. So that's what they did. And the result of that was real change in results. And it was mind-blowing. In the next slide, I'll kind of talk about Mayor Fadness coming here to one of our meetings and just some of the statistics and the things that he told us and how they all work together. And we know that Perry County, being such a close-knit community, that if they can do it, we can too. So that inspired a group in Perry County. I know that Tara went. Alan, did you go? Anybody else? I don't want to leave any. Emily went. They went to Fishers. They met with Mayor Fadness and they said, hey, what did you do? How can you help us? How can we do this here? So then they brought that back to us, and we formed the Mental Health Coalition so that we could start to do the same things that they were doing in Fishers, Indiana. Did I leave anything off of that? Okay. So hold on. Okay, the Mental Health Coalition, it was formed in May of 2021. That's when we had our first meeting, and Mayor Fadness came here. Like I said, he came. He was generous enough to give us a few hours of his time, and he just laid it all out, told us how hard it was, what all they had to do, but again, we know we can do it. So the next step we took is to engage in a simplex process that was facilitated by Ivy Tech. So they came in. We had charts everywhere. We had Post-it notes everywhere, and we're like, okay, what are the real needs? Realistically, how can we meet those needs? What are the gaps in services? What do we already have? What could do better? And I mean, this was probably months of just just hitting it all out, figuring out all of these things. And that's what we did. We collected a ton of data, thankfully, which we're going to share some of that with you guys tonight. And we were really able to try to identify resource gaps so that we can begin to fill those. And so the Mental Health Coalition is also about spreading the message, which is why we're here tonight. We want to give the community a voice. We want opinions and from outside people. We want everyone to be involved. We don't want it to just be like, oh, that Mental Health Coalition, we don't even know who they are. It should be all of us. We should all be working together. That's what Pick Perry should mean. All right. Is this my slide too?
Me, Brandy.
All right. So I am now going to let Brandy Glenn with Perry County Probation take over. She's going to give some data that she did research on, and I think that it's pretty eye-opening.
So can everybody hear me? Okay. So I joined this coalition, and what happened was they were all talking about data in the meeting. Well, I am actually getting my MSW right now in social work, so I actually had a lot of data already collected because I did one of my research projects over the need for a sober living facility in Perry County. So I had a lot of that data, and that's why I'm presenting the data today. So first off, it started with, I started with poverty. What is going on with the poverty rate in Perry County? So I started doing data with that, and I came up with I collected all the data, as you can see on the slide, with my research project with what was going on with individuals birth to 5 and individuals that are older, and why our numbers are the way they are. So then I started to dig even deeper, and I started looking at substance abuse and mental health. So part of the data that I collected, which was very eye-opening for me, was that we're 9th in Indiana for marijuana use, 7th for alcohol out of 92 counties. We're 19th out of 92 counties for treatment for methamphetamine. So, I started even digging even deeper, and then with the treatment, we're 18th out of 92 counties for treatment. So then I was like, why are we not why do we not have the resources here in Perry County? Why do we have to send people outside of Perry County to get treatment? Well, part of the reason is we have 2 agencies. One being LifeSprings, which obviously, for instance, if you take what we have on probation and we send all of our people to LifeSprings, well, obviously they're going to be overflowed and cannot get everybody in. So I started doing more data, and then I came across that 21 people in Perry County were arrested on one day for methamphetamine use. So just 21 people in one day. That's not a week, that's one day. And then 112 individuals in the county received treatment for substance abuse, but that's only 112 out of, I think we have 19,000 people in Perry County roundabout. And I'm not saying all those 19,000 people have substance abuse or mental health concerns, but a good chunk of them probably do. And then on 112 residents who received treatment, 51% of those 112 reported that they used methamphetamine. So 51% of people reported that they've used methamphetamine or have a methamphetamine problem. So then I started collecting, I continued to collect my data for my project because it was like, I think it was 15 pages. So then, as you can see on the substance use disorder treatment history use slide, that is the numbers that I came up with in the data I collected. So in 2020, you see that there's 112 people seeking treatment, which is a really low number if you think about that only 112 are seeking treatment. But why are only 112 people seeking treatment? Why? Because there's more than 112 people that have substance abuse or mental health concerns. And then there's all the data that was collected, and then opioid use was only 13%, but I would say that now it's probably even higher, especially with the crisis that we have came across. And then, so with probation, some of the things that we see as a department, I did some figuring and went through our caseload, and probably 75% of our caseload were on probation for substance-related offenses, whether it be OWI, possession of methamphetamine, possession of a controlled substance, possession of marijuana. So 75% of my caseload, or of our caseload, used or were on for a substance-related. Out of those, I dug even deeper. Out of those, I would say more than half had mental health, co-occurring disorders, trauma, anxiety, depression, PTSD. So it's a losing battle if we can't get the resources and the help that we need in the community. Because one, we have 2 officers, and you can see we have 400 people under my caseload. Now, don't get me wrong, some of those may be a transfer, some of those may be unsupervised, but still, an unsupervised individual a lot of times need just as much attention as somebody that is coming in and being supervised weekly. So then, I started going in on to the current problems that we have. Lack of resources, like I said, LifeSprings. How can one agency, or even if we had one agency, we have to get more therapists in there to be able to treat everyone in the county. Some people go in there and they may be on a waiting list. Not necessarily because we work well with LifeSprings, we really do, and they work well with us. But, some people may go in there, if they're not on community supervision, may end up being on a waiting list. Another is funding. Funding is a huge problem in the community. Transportation, someone may have a substance abuse problem or a mental health concern, but they don't have the transportation to get where they need to be. They may want the help, but they don't have the transportation to get the help. There's no inpatient or sober living facility in the community. Lack of support from family, friends, and the community. When I say that, I mean I have substance abuse in my family. We're supportive of each other. But we have people that come in our office that it's just them. They have nobody. Nobody to help them. Nobody to tell them they're doing an awesome job. Nobody to tell them, hey, you got 90 days clean, great job. They have nobody but us that's helping them. Lack of mentors for juveniles. I threw that in there just because our juveniles, a lot of times, the problems are at home. They're not just with the juvenile in committing a criminal behavior, it starts at home. So where do we go about giving or allowing or finding some place for mentors for juvenile offenders? Lack of communication between agencies. Some agencies we communicate very well with. We work with them daily. I talk to them daily. For instance, there is another, besides LifeSprings, there is another facility inside the community that I've been in probation for 9 years in March, and I've talked to that facility that agency one time in 9 years. So how do I know if my clients are doing well? How do I know if they're on the proper medications? How do I know if they're staying sober? How do I know what they need, where I need to help them if they are not communicating with us? And then another issue that we have, that we see in probation, is I think a lot of people think that we're here to discipline or give the consequences, and that's not the answer. Just because somebody tests positive on a drug screen doesn't mean that they should always go to jail. Now, don't get me wrong, if it's going to save your life, I'll put you in jail just like that. But jail doesn't have the resources either to help an individual in need. So, and then, you know, a lot of that is with juveniles as well. We'll get called, and it may not even be a criminal matter, or it may be something that is a minor matter, or say we have no facility or a bed open at our detention center. We have no place for this person to go, or this kid to go, and then we also don't know the family members. We don't know if they have somebody somewhere else to stay, or if they ran away from home because something that's going on inside the home. Should we really be throwing this kid in detention for that if something is going on inside the home with the parents? Because there's just a lot of concerns that we need to come together as a community to help individuals inside.
Thank you, Brandy. I would say that was probably pretty eye-opening data for some of us who haven't seen that before. And now I get the privilege of introducing my brother, Chase Litherland, and he's going to give a little bit of his story and struggle and lack of resources through his journey with recovery. So, Chase?
Can you guys hear me? A little bit louder? Okay, all right. Good evening. My name is Chase Litherland, and I'm in recovery, and I have been sober for over 5 years. Like 16 days would be 6 years, so we're almost there. With that, there's a huge need for mental health support, recovery support, and we're just not doing everything I think we really can do. There's a group that I work with and I hang out with. Celia's part of that, and there's a whole group of people that are in recovery that are trying to help people, right? But that's only a few people, right? Trying to grab every single person that we possibly can, right? And there's not enough resources. So I've been in this community my whole life, you know. Pick Perry, Lacey said it perfect. That Pick Perry is what this is all about. You know, we should pick each other up. You know, we should pick each other up. We should help each other. We should do anything we can to help each other, right? And there's certain things that I think everybody in here does a really, really good job at, but then there's some things I think we kind of lack at just a little bit. But, you know, I'm very involved with the community. You know, I'm a coach. I've kept my job for 15 years almost. And throughout that whole time, I've struggled with alcohol, struggled with drugs, you name it, you know. And without getting the help that I needed, I wouldn't be here today. I guarantee it, 100%. I feel that 100%. But that wasn't by reaching out and getting help that I needed. It was by, luckily, I got a phone call. I got a hold of somebody who's in my family who knew, you know, what to do, you know, and they brought me into meetings, and I got sober that way. And this is not to put a knock on anybody else, but, you know, when I needed help, when I was in the gutter, I was dying, you know, I needed help. I couldn't do it anymore. I asked for help. I got a call. I went to Southern Hills. That's not a knock on anybody. And I waited. I'm walking in there and I'm scared to death, right? Anybody that's been in recovery that knows what that feels like. I'm waiting to figure out what's my next action, what's going to happen, right? I got put on a 6-month waiting list. 6 month, right? And I'm about to die. I feel like I could die at any day, right? And I got put on a waiting list, right? That's not right, right? I know there's things that happen. I know what happens. But for somebody who's at the end of their days and they reach out for help, right? You put your hand out and there's nobody there, right? Now, we can still work. We can still do better, right? I know we all can. We have a huge group in here right now, and everybody wants to help, right? We just have to figure out what those needs are and what we can do, right? I'll help anybody, right? But that's one person. I think anybody in this room would help, but that's one person, right? We need a group of people coming together to make this better, right? So after that, I get my friend, cousin, we're working, I get sober, things are going really, really good, right? And I get my 6-month chip. So excited, right? Half a year, 6 months, and I'm so excited. I'm feeling good, looking good. I get a phone call, okay, from that same group. And they said, do you still need help with that problem? What problem, right? I didn't have a clue what they were asking me. Oh, well, you were on the waiting list for this. So I just kind of chuckled a little bit, and I said, no, I'm good. I just picked my 6-month chip 2 days ago. I'm good. But that's what happens, right? People get out there, and there's hope, right? But then there's no push to help anybody, right? So that's all I'm out here is to try to figure out what we can all do to come together. I love Pick Perry. I love my community. I love Perry County, and I would do anything for anybody. But again, that's one person. We have a whole group in here, and we have the resources, and we have the, enough minds in here, I think, that we can get something started, right? Okay, it starts with one person, but we can bring everybody else together, to make this better. So that's really all I have for today, but I'll pass it on to somebody else.
You did a great job.
You're welcome.
Move the candy. Okay, next up, we want to continue on with some more data to share with you all. And you'll see that some reaches back several years, some spans several years back, and we don't necessarily have the most updated version, but wanted to provide you with what we do have. So the Perry County child abuse and neglect data. So substance abuse disorders have a huge impact on families and children. This is some of the most recent data on child abuse and neglect, and which is often, we see often connected to mental health and substance use disorders. So as we look, especially from 2017 going up to 2020 and 2021, we see there's a positive direction. But there are still very large numbers being made to child abuse hotlines. So not all of these calls result in action being taken on behalf of the child. And then calls coded as mental health. So this is Perry County Dispatch data. And so you see as of August of 2021, so just in 2021, there have been 28 calls coded as mental health and 3 deaths. And then you can see the 2020 and 2019 data as well. And then Perry County suicide data. So the suicide rates, we have the data from 2011 to 2015. And it's the most recent data that is out there. The number of suicides, 20. Suicide rate, 19.1. Hospitalizations, 31, and emergency department visits, 98. And at this time, I'm going to introduce Tara Bishop and John Sholvo.
I've never been accused of being somebody that needs a microphone, but I'll use it. So we look at our elementary schools first, and you can see that data up here. I'm not going to read all those numbers to you. You can see it yourself. But we're looking at about 25% of our students that are getting some sort of services at the elementary school. And you think, my gosh, what does an elementary student have to worry about? Well, it's all the things we've been talking about. It's a mom and a dad who has a problem. It's a mom and dad that may be in jail. It's those type of things that they're not going to express to you, and the only way they know how to ask for help is to sometimes act out. And we talk a lot about a hierarchy of needs, and at the top of that is learning and that self-actualization process. But you can't get to that point until you have your basic needs met. The food, the shelter, the love and the compassion and the support that you've got at home. And if you don't feel safe in your home or in your school, you cannot achieve at school. So when we look at these numbers, it's telling on student success. And we can go on and on about how much of an export we have in our children. We talk about that at the high school level. And when students graduate, what do they do here in Perry County? And we focus a lot on how do we keep an adult student here. But when you look at those CHINS cases too, a lot of our students are going elsewhere because we don't have the resources to meet those needs here. So when you look at 25% of our elementary students that receive some kind of support, whether that's support with their 504s or IEP meetings, transitions from the elementary school to the high school, that's a big jump. If you don't remember being that teenage person going from a self-contained classroom where you know everybody and your buddies to a rotating schedule. We've got behavior interventionists that help with calming rooms. When a student just doesn't know how to focus and pay attention to the teacher and they just have to get away, these are the strategies that we are teaching them now and have to continue teaching them in high school and then supporting them as they become adults in the community. At the high school level, we've got 48% of our students getting some sort of service here. That's a lot, I get that. But you have the teenage relationships, and those are important, and they are difficult, and they're more difficult now because social media is out there. And you don't have to do something at school for it to be brought to school. And that is a thing that we fight all the time. But it's everything. It's going to college. It's, do I go to college? What if I don't want to go to college? We have career planning going on. We have mentors. We have referrals to outside agencies. These are the things that are adding up to those percents that you see on the board, and it's directly related to the mental health of the adults that are in these students' lives. So it's a full circle type of thing that we have to break. We have to instill these students with the ability to ask for help when they need it and receive that help when they need it so that when they become adults, they don't pass this on to their children. We don't want this to be the legacy. Tara? You have to go get on camera.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So at Perry Central, our kids in grades K through 8 get, some people call it social emotional learning, but that's become a word that isn't super popular. And so really all that is a fancy way to say we teach children how to manage their own emotions and how to deal with conflict, how to learn to get along with one another. A lot of things that people might say, well, we ought to really be doing that in homes. And John and I would completely agree with that, 100%. But sometimes it isn't happening, and so we have to fill those gaps because the children are coming to us without those skills, and then they need a lot of support when they're inside our walls. So they all get that level, and then based on survey data at Perry Central Elementary, 34% of our kids, and at Perry Central Junior Senior High, 40% of our kids need additional help beyond that programming that all kids get. So it's not enough for them, and they need something beyond just the Tier 1 education that all kids get. We've got school social workers just like John does, and we serve 25% of them last year with mental health counseling in the school setting. So that's like what we would prefer a lot of times to refer them out for. We're doing in-house in many cases due to transportation, due to financing for families, due to, frankly, sometimes lack of available therapy in the community. And so we talked a lot with our Mental Health Coalition about that, about the fact that there aren't a lot of people going into mental health, to that field anymore. And so we're competing for the same employees. And so far in 21-22, we have served 19% of our K-12 students with mental health counseling. And we've referred a lot out as well. Could you hit that button? The enter button. Yeah, that worked. Okay. This is already back in 2020 data, but the Indiana University does a youth survey every year, and a lot of our county schools have been pretty good about participating in that most years. And this is just some interesting data I thought was good to share. That the question is asked of 8th, 10th, and 12th graders, did you feel sad or hopeless for 2 or more weeks in a row? And 20% of the 12th grade students in the spring of 2020 answered yes to that question. Have you seriously considered attempting suicide? 11% of the 8th graders said yes to that question. And have you made a plan about attempting suicide? 5% of 8th graders, 10% of 12th graders had made a plan about that. So it makes sense that we're serving large numbers of kids with mental health counseling when we see numbers like this. And of course, this is all anonymous, and it's self-reported data that's collected by IU's Prevention Resource Center. Thank you. And then, that's us.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. All right, so that brings us to current mental health services. And again, we collected as much data as possible. We are aware that there are things out there that may not be on here. Please, at the end of this, if there's something that you're like, hey, you guys left this off, tell us. Like, we want everything that we can possibly get. So we know here in Perry County we have Life Springs. And Life Springs, I know you guys are here, so correct me if I say something wrong. They provide mental health counseling, substance use disorder counseling, and there is intensive outpatient programs in development. Do you guys do inpatient?
We have an inpatient facility in Jeffersonville.
Okay.
Currently, and one in Jasper's in the works.
Okay. But in Perry County, not yet. And so we also have virtual consult, which is in the basement of the Telecity Clinic. That is on-site therapy and teletherapy, which they also provide telehealth psychiatric care. Is that all telehealth right now, Brian? Or can they go in for visits? It's all telehealth? Okay. And then we have various other counselors from outside the community, some that live in the community but maybe practice outside of the community, that are able to do teleservices. So Bradley D. Hart, I know just off the top of my head, he has an office in Kentucky, but he can see patients in Perry County virtually. And I know that he is doing that. And then some people just resort maybe to their family physician. So they're going to the doctor, maybe they have anxiety, they have depression, and possibly that doctor's not saying, let me hook you up with a mental health provider. They're saying, and I'm not accusing any of our physicians of doing this, but I'm just saying it could be like, well, let me write you a prescription for this, and then maybe you'll figure the rest of it out later. Are they referring people to get to the root cause instead of just putting them on a medication? So now it's back to you, Tara, and school-based. I don't think you guys want me to talk about that.
I don't think I said who I was a while ago either, but I think I know most of the people in the room. But I'm Tara Bishop from Perry Central. And this is John's and my both data, so I might just hand the microphone to him randomly here in a second. We do a lot of school-based services at Perry Central and Tell City. Like I talked about a minute ago, Tier 1 is something that all kids get. It's like a universal prevention kind of programming. Those are classroom lessons. And some of that is also substance abuse prevention. And at William Tell, I know that they have the program on gang prevention, the name of which escapes me right this minute.
Well,
Great, there you go. Yeah.
It's going to be AIM now.
Yes.
Okay, that one.
Thank you.
And then Tier 2 is for kids who need something beyond that initial universal programming. So they may get small group counseling or peer mentoring or a social worker or counselor check-in. And then finally, there's Tier 3 for the kids who need intensive supports. For those kids, we do individual counseling. We refer them out to counseling. We refer them to intensive wraparound. We have something called MTSS teams, which basically we bring teams of people together and we collect all the data around the kid and try to figure out what are the barriers and what can we do to support that child. We have dual status teams where we collaborate with DCS and probation and the judge, and we try to come together, the prosecutor try to come together around kids and what can we do to support them to the best of our ability. Anything I missed there, John? All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, that brings us to recovery programs. Chase, did you just want to say a little bit about some of what you work with, how they can find those things, maybe even like the lack of, maybe due to COVID, what you've seen?
Yeah, I'll go through a little bit of this.
Okay.
I could probably just talk out here. But on the recovery programs, we do have free. They're free. Free recovery support groups in Tell City multiple times per week. The dates and the times are posted on the Perry County News. So there's plenty of information on there as far as meetings in Tell City, and then we also, Celia or myself, anybody after that's wanting to know where some different meetings are, we do have a meeting list for Perry County, Spencer County, kind of a few of the areas around here, but there are a lot of free support groups. That's where I got my start. Celia might have got some of hers there. It's just sometimes you don't have needs or you don't have the money to go to these doctors or go to different areas. So some of these are free, and all the meetings that we're talking about are. And then also there's free faith-based recovery group meetings also in here. So I think we have a list of some information that we can pass out at the end of the little meeting also. So there's a lot of programs out there also. You're welcome.
You can go ahead to the next.
Okay. Like Lacey had mentioned, we received, the Mental Health Coalition went through facilitation training that was facilitated by Ivy Tech. And what we found through that facilitation training was some barriers in services. So with mental health counseling, we found staff shortages, fewer people going into the profession. Intake processing is challenging for families. Transportation, stigma, and rural health. And then also, on the next slide, we saw the barriers with substance use disorder treatment, lack of access to treatment, lack of access to comprehensive recovery services, lack of recovery housing, and COVID's impact on recovery programs. And then Lacey's going to touch on the needs of the community.
So with all of that facilitation from Ivy Tech, it finally, after we went through all of the things, we kind of narrowed it down to what we thought maybe were not the most important needs, but just things that we felt like we could start with and tackle first. And so increased awareness and understanding of mental health and substance abuse disorder. What is it? What does it look like? Why are we still in the mentality that, like, if you have a mental illness, like, there's something wrong with you? It's like, that's not the case. We need to end the stigma and teach people, raise awareness, like, get everybody on the same page about what mental health and substance abuse disorders are. We need additional providers for mental health counseling. And I know when we've spoke with LifeSprings, it's not for lack of trying. All of our places that provide, they're trying, but they are having a hard time recruiting. We need substance abuse disorder treatment. Like Chase said, these meetings don't work for everyone. Thankfully, like he does have a loving family who supported him. We had a family member who picked up the phone that night and was like, I'm coming to your house, and did that. But not everybody has that. So what happens to those people? Where do they go? What do they do? Psychiatric services, medication management, case management, and recovery housing. So those are just some of what we narrowed it down to, what we thought we could tackle first or raise awareness on first. Okay, is this me too? Okay. So mental health, some of our goals were kind of to see how we can recruit and retain qualified mental health professionals and possibly find peer support group models. So like Brandy was talking about with probation, with kids that are in probation, juveniles, right? And even people in recovery, or someone who is a survivor of domestic abuse or is grieving, or, you know, there's all kinds of trauma. It looks different, but where do those people go? How do we get with one another and wrap our arms around and say, hey, you're a sexual abuse survivor, so am I. How can I help you? We don't really have a whole lot of that. So one of the groups that we did reach out to as far as with the Mental Health Coalition was NAMI, and they are scheduled to come to Perry County to one of our meetings and talk to us. And just kind of, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? If there's a model out there that's working, why not go for it? Or at least try to do something similar to what they're doing. So that was that on the mental health part. And then here in just a second, I'm going to turn it over to Celia, and she's going to talk about substance use disorder solutions and kind of what we can do there. So Celia, do you want this microphone?
Sure. Do I have to hold it?
No.
Can't you mic me? Celia, alcoholic and addict. Am I on? Yes. Can you hear me without it? Yeah. I mean, really?
Maybe just talk a little louder.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want this? Okay, good. Thank you.
Celia, alcoholic and addict.
Oh, wow.
Okay, my sister. I don't know of too many people when they were little kids that said, I want to grow up and be an alcoholic and an addict. That's what I want to be when I grow up. This is the face of alcoholism and addiction. This is the face of alcoholism and addiction. So if you've got a different perspective, I'm asking you to rethink that. This is the face of alcoholism and addiction, sitting right here before you. I've been sober going on 8 years. Thank you. I'll take that. Thank you. For whatever reason, my alcoholism and addiction began after the birth of my second child. That would be Andrea, your neighbor. And it lasted for 27 years. 27 years this went on. I tried treatment centers. I went 3 different times, and all I got was more drugs. I just got more drugs. And here, you graduated. I'm sorry. You've graduated. You're cured. There you go. No, I wasn't at all. I don't know why it took me 27 years to figure out that I need to clean up my act. I don't know. But I do know this. All these slides that you saw with the cycle, mine started as a very young girl. Mom died young, all kinds of crap and drama going on in the family. As a teenager, I decided I'm gonna numb that out. I'm not dealing with that, and the drugs began, and they worked well. For 27 years, they worked really well, until they just didn't anymore. They just quit working. I was offered sober living. In my program, we talk about geographical cures. In other words, you can't move away and get sober someplace else. It's never going to work. Well, I challenged that. It worked for me. I moved here. I moved here from Indianapolis. Brought Aiden with me when he was 9 years old, and he did not like me for that at all. But I was offered a sober living house, my sister. Lived there for a year. The only treatment I got was the programs in town, the free programs in town. I'm not here to dismiss any treatment for anybody. They worked for me. I don't know why. I will never know why. But that's where I started, was here. I lived in a home that expected me to stay clean and sober. I had to go to work. I had to go to meetings. I'm raising Aiden. He's displaced. He's going to William Tell Elementary. He doesn't like any of this. But I had to save both of us. I had to save both of us, and I was offered a place to do that. There have been a lot of statistics thrown out tonight. They're mind-boggling. I'm stunned. I knew my statistics in recovery. I wasn't aware of everything that was going on up there. So, pardon me. The Journal of Psychoactive Drugs reported last year that the average stay is between 5.5 and 8.5 months in a sober house. 5.5 to 8.5 months. You don't go in for 3 weeks and come out and you're cured. That's not going to work. In Psychology Today, if you have less than 1 year sober, you relapse 2/3 of the time. If you have, that's less than 1 year. If you have 1 year sober, you relapse 50% of the time. If you have more than 5 years sober, your percentage of staying clean and sober is 85%. 85%. I don't know of anybody who can argue with 85%. At 5 years sober, you know, by then you've changed everything. You've changed everything. Absolutely everything. Because that's what we have to do, right, Chase?
Yeah.
I know, it sucks. So, and to Chase's point, this is what happens to people like us. This is what happens to people like us. Oh, LifeSpring, yeah, I need help and I need it now. I'm in withdrawals. Nobody wants me. My family's kicked me out. I haven't even been arrested, so I can't even go to jail. Oh, well, there's a 6-month wait. Oh, where do they go? Where do you go? You go back out and do more drugs. And then maybe they'll call in 6 months and say they got a bed, and you're like, nah, I don't want that now. The critical disconnect, I think, right now in our community is, I want to go get clean and sober. I want to go do that now, because I'm here to tell you the window for people like us who keep wanting to go now, it narrows. That is the critical disconnect, I think, in this community. I want to go now, there's no place to go. Okay, we got to work on that. You know, we are a small community with you can't go to the emergency room, you can't go, you know, there's no in-house treatment centers. Evansville, Stepping Stones might have a bed, they might not. That's a really big disconnect. So, my sober house. You know, and I said at the last meeting that I don't want the community to think of it as like a frat house, you know, or John Belushi's Animal House. That's not what this is going to be. In a perfect world, someone coming in, excuse me, I'm still smoking, can't you tell? Someone coming in would be fully detoxed. They would have detoxed one way or another, whether it be jail, on the street, on mom's couch. It's an awful thing to detox. Trust me. Am I right? It's awful. They would pass a drug test. They would have a background check. I've got all this packet of 2 sober houses that I visited, and they got it together. They really do. Background check. A psychosocial history. In other words, where have you been, what have you done, and what are you planning? You might get an honest answer on some of that, you might not, but people who run sober houses pretty much can feel whether or not there's truth in those statements. They would have to adhere to non-negotiable house rules. Non-negotiable house rules, period, which are posted. They have to be willing to work, or they're going to volunteer in the community. And they have to bring a sincere desire to bring about change, both personally and within the community, by living clean and sober. Clean and sober people are some of the best people I know. They're some of the best people I know, because I'm gonna cuss. You know, we can cut through the bullshit. We can cut right through it. You know, we're honest and we're forthright and we're helpful and we're grateful and we're humble. And I say all that with all the humbleness I can muster. Because we have to be. We have to be. We're not going to make it any other way. Ego, oh God, ego. Yeah, that's a sticking point for me all the time. A day in the life. Okay, a day in the life of someone living in a sober house. Again, not a frat house. They don't get to get up and go watch TV all day and eat someone else's food. And, that's not what this is. Okay, first of all, they're going to put 2 feet on the floor. They're going to roll back their covers, and they're going to put 2 feet on the floor with no drugs or alcohol in the system. Anybody who's not an addict or an alcoholic doesn't know how that feels. Chase does. I do. I do. Pulling back the covers to put 2 feet on the floor to do anything except brush your teeth is excruciating. It's excruciating, and I didn't know how to do it. And then maybe they would get up and join their housemates for prayer, meditation, alone or with the group. Because we have to depend on someone. It's a higher power. It's whatever you make it. And then you would read recovery literature, whether it's AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, whatever speaks to you, whatever program speaks to you. And then you would get dressed. Get dressed. Sounds simple, right? And then maybe you'll help your housemates prepare breakfast for the entire house. And do the dishes. Simple things, right? And then maybe you would go clean up your room and go do your laundry. See if anyone else in the house needs help. And then if you're not working, you're going to be looking for a job for 2 hours a day. Job search. Mandatory. And then you would attend another meeting, a morning meeting, in-house or off-site, doesn't matter. You would get your log signed because the house director would want to see that, especially if you're leaving. Take part in group activities, whether it be Recovery Dynamics, which I'm not going to go into here, great program. You could go down to the basement and sort donations that have been given to the home by groups in the community. Afternoon prayer, meditation, alone or with the group. Prepare dinner. Cook something. Set the table. Normal people stuff, right? Attend an evening meeting, in-house or on-site, off-site. Use 1 hour of free time to work the 10th step. And for those of you who don't know the program, every day my program teaches me to think about who I have hurt, who I need to apologize to, what I've said that was inappropriate. These are things that go through our head every day, all day long. It's either that or drugs. Am I right? Yeah. Call your sponsor. And if you stay clean and sober that day, you can go to bed, rest in peace, because you're sober. That's all there is to it. I have Joe Crutchfield here. Thank you. It's taken him 3 years to get from thought of a recovery house to we're ready to build. 3 years. Do you know how many people die in 3 years? So I'm going to defer to him if you guys have specific questions about cost or whatever. That's going to go to Joe. Early education. Wow. Yeah. I think by the time Chase and I became addicts, it was too late. need to be talking to these kids in 5th grade, 6th grade. And trauma at school, and trying to recognize trauma in school that's going to lead to my life, his life. You know, if we can make people aware and look at that kid and go, okay, so what do you do to numb out? What do you do to stop from thinking about all of this drama in your life? Well, video games, or smoke a little pot, or drink a couple beers. No, it's never going to work. It's never going to work for people like us. It'll never be enough. It will never be enough. And I'm fortunate because I didn't die from this disease. I could have. I would have. Chase did not die from this disease. Anybody who's sitting in here clean and sober didn't die from this disease. But for the grace of God, I don't know why. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm here. Aiden has had this kind of talk pounded into his head. He's not crazy about it. He said, well, can't I even just go have a beer with my buddies when I turn 21? And I went, well, sure, but why? He goes, well, to take the edge off. Take the edge off what? How hard is your life right now? And he said, well, you don't see it the way I do. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, go try that, Aiden, and see how, and you know, addiction, alcoholism is genetic. I believe that with all my heart. I think I was born an addict. I was always going to be an addict. But I also think that we can stop it with early education, pounding into these kids that, what do you got to take the edge off of? What do you got to take the edge off of? What's happening in your life that you feel you need to get the edge off of that? We need to ask those questions. I do believe that's all I wanted to talk about. Like I said, I'm not going to stop talking about Sober House in town. I'm just not going to do that. And there's people in this room who are with me. It doesn't have to be this hard. It just doesn't. So I appreciate your time. I'm Celia Farron, and we're moving on. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. So also a little note on there is that there are opportunities for recovery coaches to be trained. There's always ways that we can do better at communicating and collaborating amongst agencies that are already here. And then also another thing was something that we had heard about was certified recovery specialist training. All of these things cost money, though. So like if Chase, please correct me if I'm wrong, either one of you, but if you wanted to become a peer recovery coach, it's like $500, right?
Yeah.
So when we probably need like 50 of those, we need several of those. We don't just need Chase or Celia or anybody else. Like we need a lot of those. So where do they get that $500? In my opinion, if they're helping our community, they shouldn't have to pay that $500 because they're providing a service to our community. So before we go to the Q&A, there's just a couple of things that I want to kind of end with. And I don't know how many times I've heard since we started the Mental Health Coalition, oh, you're not part of that Mental Health Coalition, are you? Is that really a problem? And I'm like floored. First of all, did you really just say that? And second, yes, I'm a part of the Mental Health Coalition because mental health is an issue and it's here. It's been here. It's not going anywhere. It's in our schools. It's in our hospitals. It's in the workforce. It's in sobriety. Like it is here. It's been here and we have to do something about it. And to go along with the recovery housing, I've heard people, well, I don't want that in my backyard. Not in my backyard. Okay, I probably shouldn't say this, but do you want a meth lab in your backyard? Because you probably have one. I'd rather have a recovery house in my backyard than a meth lab or a house full of addicts just hanging out, laying on the couch all day. And that's the reality of it. It's here. It's not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We're going to get louder and louder and louder. We're going to teach the community what we can do to help each other. Now's the time. Now is the time. So, thank you. Thank all of you for speaking today. Thank you guys for attending. I know that we have one last slide after this, Tara, if you want to hit it really quick. It has contact information. If you want more information about the Mental Health Coalition, if you want to be a part of the Mental Health Coalition, if you want to contribute data, please email me, unitedwayperry@gmail.com. Chase and Celia have put their information up here. If you need help, if you know someone that needs help and they don't know where to go, call either one of them, day or night. They will pick up their phone and they will help. And then we have some hotline numbers on here. We also have printouts of the slides up here. Feel free to take as many as you like. And then we have a resource guide that has some of the information in it as far as who to contact for meetings. I think we've got information from LifeSprings in there, different places. So how do we want to do the Q&A? Does somebody want to take a mic out there? Or I think we can probably all hear each other. What do you think?
Ask if there's any questions.
Okay, so I'm just going to start. Does anybody want to comment, have a question? Right out the gate, don't be shy. Yes, Mr. Tom McCart.
That's not good.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir, who I don't know in the audience.
I'm curious from the educators, a couple of years back, I don't know if it's 10 years or 5 years, but we had received some figures on the homeless students. And at that point in time, it just absolutely amazed me as to how many students are classified as homeless because no one knows where in the hell they're living from day to day. I'm curious if you guys might have those numbers at this point, or if it's changed at all. But I knew it was a critical issue in the whole community.
Yeah.
To say I have no, I don't need a mic. To say we have an exact number, no. But it's well over 100 students, and you can see from the Chins cases, we're moving kids out and in because of the need for stable housing. So it hasn't gotten better, is the short answer.
We also have over 100 kids at Perry that are classified as homeless, but I will say the vast majority of those under federal law, where we have to identify kids as homeless, if two families are living in the same home due to economic hardship, that's considered homeless. And don't get me wrong, that's not an easy situation to be in, but the vast majority of our homeless kids, and my guess is yours too,
Yeah.
are classified as homeless because they're doubled up.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have quite a few couch surfing teenagers once we get to that age, where kids get kicked out of the home and they just go from friend to friend.
And I've got a question, I guess I'll call you guys a coalition here. But I was fortunate enough 10 or 15 years ago to be a big brother. And I thought at that point in time or soon after, the young lady that ran Big Brothers and Big Sisters in Berry County had moved to Owensboro. And I don't think I've ever seen any program in Berry County as Big Brothers and Big Sisters. At least my experience in a lot of areas is that is incredibly critical because you've got so many single household parents, and so many of them, regardless if they're men or women, it's just heartbreaking if you ever are fortunate enough to get involved in a program where you're a big brother or a big sister, and it's gratifying after. They graduate from school and they graduate from college, that they made it, even though their mother or their father wound up killing themselves. And it's just one of those issues that when we look at this circle, so much of it is the family. And we can do everything we can do and get people involved, but if you don't have a family core, it makes it tougher and tougher all the way around. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a really
if
good
that's
point.
on your agenda to take a look at that going forward and seeing if you can get that back in Perry County.
It will be, yes. Thank you for bringing that up, because that was kind of one of those services that we talked about that just like, where did it go? What happened? It was here, now it's not, and
It still
nothing.
is.
Oh, it is?
It's just
We
not
do it
official.
in-house.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You guys go ahead.
We have students that will go from the high school, maybe down to the elementary school, play basketball during a lunch. Just have lunch with the
It's
kids.
not officially Big Brothers Big Sisters, but it's a mentor program.
Yeah.
And to your point, Mr. McCart, about families and the kind of breakdown of families, one of the things that we see kids struggle with so much is their parents with addiction and substance abuse that's in the home. And they bring all of the trauma that they live with in those homes into school with them, which is why there's just such a connection between substance use and mental health and child abuse and neglect. and that whole vicious cycle, and those children land, you know, on our doorstep. And what's interesting is that a lot of agencies are working hard in Perry County to serve kids. And we'll come to the table when we ask people to come to the table to try to help us work on it. Ultimately, the one institution that can't turn them away no matter what is the school. And so we feel that every day, and we don't want to turn them away, don't get me wrong, but sometimes we are out of resources and we need some support, which is where having some more resources in the community and having the whole community be working on it would be so awesome.
Thanks, Tom.
Go
ahead.
People that know me know I never stop talking.
Yep.
The other thing is,
That's true.
and I think I forgot it, foster care. I don't know
Yes.
how we're doing it. And I've heard so many scary stories where you take a child for foster care and have to send him to Terre Haute or Indianapolis because there's nothing here. And all of a sudden, you know, we're separating that child from his core group and sends him someplace else, which has to be devastating. I think, I don't know who talked about it, but maybe one of the educators talking about a child going from grade school into the junior high, even in the same town, and all of a sudden your whole social group changes, and it can be devastating for some kids. I think of foster care is something which is really, really tough on a kid if they get relocated out of there. It's bad enough if you stayed in your community, but at least if you're still in your community, you might be able to still hang out with some of your social group in school.
Nancy, I'm not
I
going
was
to put you on
gonna
the
say-
spot, but would you happen to know off the top of your head, are we still having to send a lot of kids out? Yeah.
Yes, children are still being placed outside of our community because we do not have foster parents waiting here in the community.
So in case you did not hear her, yes, we still have an abundance of children being placed outside of the community because we don't have enough foster parents here in Perry County.
And that's our fault.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, before Tom speaks again, I just
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Does the coalition actually have a formal, collaborative effort with the churches?
We have tried to bring some faith-based members of our community in. They have attended several meetings, but then it just kind of trickled down. So we're trying to continue to build that relationship, but as of right now, it's just kind of here.
Can I?
And-
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
The other question would be, you use the word agencies through these slides. When you say that, do you mean outside the community agencies that are placed here? Or are you talking about community agencies? Or both?
Can you be specific about like what?
Yeah.
We say
So
we
that
need
would
like
go to my
better
next question.
collaboration.
What would be your ask, except for money, outside your community for help? If you couldn't get money, but you needed help from outside of this community, what would it be?
Yeah.
Who wants to
You
take
do
that
it.
one? Yes, but
Just, who are you?
that's Steve Bartels.
Hey, Steve.
So, I mean,
We're wanting,
I
like,
think it's important, you know, for me,
more
outside, how do we
therapists.
help?
Yeah.
We need medication
Sober.
management, we need psychiatric services, we need additional mental health providers, we need recovery housing.
And I think too, we need leadership. Like you, for example, just being here tonight, we need more people that are willing to listen and help us come up with ideas and solutions and say, hey, this community's doing this, or they might be able to share this resource with you, you know, in Spencer County, they might be able to share it with you in Perry County. Just more people to listen to help us figure out what we can do and how we can do that.
Well, I will say, I won't mention the county, but it's in my district that uses shame on faith-based organizations to be a part of this. So
Okay.
If I can help with the shame.
Yeah, sure. We will take you up on the shame, sir.
We'll let you do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you guys thought about reaching out to Task of Mind? Y'all already told? Yes.
Yes, we have.
What
We
was the
have.
question?
Task of Mind. Have you guys heard of that? Valerie Cole, somebody else help me because I'm not super familiar with everything they do.
They put on meals during the holidays for people that don't have other people to go to.
Okay.
In the community, so they can come together as a community and not be lonely.
Yes, I was thinking they were more suicide awareness, suicide prevention based. And she has been, they have been invited to meetings
It used to
and,
be part of Strong Families, Strong Communities,
yes,
too.
yeah. I feel like part of what has happened, and somebody tell me if I am talking too much and shouldn't say this. I feel like we all tried to do so much and everybody was like, oh, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. Oh, but nobody knew what the other group was doing. And so then like all these things got lost in translation. And now it's like we've all kind of lost faith in each other. You know, we know that we have really great intentions. We know that, you know, Judge is doing what she can do, that Alan's doing what he can do, that Nancy's, you know, we know these people, we're all doing what we can do, but we've kind of lost faith in the big picture. Like, that's just my opinion. I just feel like we're all kind of running on fumes. We're begging, we're like, God, we need these services, but we really don't have a whole lot of faith that leadership in our community is willing to help us get those services. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
I don't need that. My name's Beth, and I know a lot of the people in this room that have helped me. I've used probably every agency that's been mentioned. My children have been in need of services because of my alcoholism. I have taken certified recovery specialist training.
Great.
I recently finished adult peer support specialist training in Kentucky. There's a great organization, it's Wayside Christian Mission. It is a homeless shelter. They also do recovery programs. I've met so many people the last like 3 weeks that have worked through the shelter, that have gone through the program, that would be something I think that would be great to somebody to talk to. I went there for the support services there for free. They do
Wow.
not charge for the adult peer support specialist because they give it to their homeless residents.
Wow.
So they didn't charge me. It just happened. They had an opening. They said, come on down, we'll get you in. And so I did that for absolutely free. I paid $500 for the other, for Indiana. But now I'm qualified to work and help. I've been in the court system. I've got great help from Brandy. Brandy has been one of my best cheerleaders. And I'm forever thankful for Brandy. I'm thankful for being arrested. You know, we have to have, though, something to bridge the gap from being arrested and being put in jail and losing your children. When my kids were in need of services, it took a while for me to get services for myself for recovery. In that meantime, in that gap, I attempted suicide, and I was a 911 call. So, you know, we have to come together as a community to be able to help each other, because it's not strangers. It's people you know. It's people that you love, that you don't know is going through something. And, you know, you have to listen. You have to pay attention. You have to watch for those cues of something is not right. And be available for those people. You know, Chase, you know what I'm talking about. It's like you have to be there and listen and give out your number if you're willing to help. You know, give that extra boost. You know, if you see somebody's doing the right thing, you tell them you're doing a good job, because that means so much to us in recovery, because we felt so badly about ourselves for so long that even though we do have time behind us, it still is hard to look at ourselves as not successes, but as better than we were yesterday. And as an alcoholic, that's all I can do, is be better today than what I was yesterday. Be a better mother to my children. Be a better nana to my grandbabies. You know, that's all we can do. But without support around us, it's so easy to just fall apart and end up right back where we were in the beginning. So this is awesome.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being here. Thank you. We see you.
Lacey?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to make a point
Do you want this?
to the gentleman back here. In the recovery program that I'm in, which I won't name, but the churches in this community have been very gracious in allowing us to use their basements or their coffee pots, or we have been very fortunate in this community to have been welcomed into most of the churches in the area. with very little oversight. I mean, the fact that they're allowing a bunch of addicts and alcoholics to just travel around their building is amazing. But so we do have that support in this community, in a lot of the churches that we've ever talked to. So wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Celia. Anybody else have a question or comment? Data, statistics, something you want to throw at us? Yes.
Hello, everybody. I didn't travel all the way from Jasper, not to say nothing.
No, absolutely. Please.
But that's what I am, you know, I'm from Jasper. You know, why is a guy from Jasper doing in Perry County and stuff? And like Celia said, you know, alcoholism and drug addiction's everywhere, but so is recovery. It doesn't matter where you go to or what you do. You know, I just met Cecilia a while back, and I'm hoping to meet you. You know, Chase. But the thing is, me and Chase has something in common because we're alcoholics, drug addicts. But I'm not going to go in my story and stuff. I'm in recovery myself and stuff. What I want to talk about is a recovery home, and I'm getting involved in Jasper. I started it. You know, this recovering alcoholic drug addict who should have died many years ago is starting a recovery home. You know, and what it was, and I'll give you a brief description on it, how it started. It started 3 years ago. That's how long it's taken me. It started off with politicians and people in the city of Jasper think they knew how to help recovery. And when they was going to do all this recovery thing and all this, and they had politicians on this board, and they had councilmen, and they had this and that, but they didn't have a single person on recovery on that board. And that would piss me off. So I started doing something about it. And we have that in Jasper too, where we have people come out of rehab, or the work release center, or security center has no place to go. They want to stay sober, they have no place to go. It's a constant rotation. And that's why I started, for the first year, I went out and talked to everybody, from the community, to politicians, to the mayor, to the sheriff. Anybody who wanted to talk about it, I went and talked to them about it. You know, that's for the whole year I did that, just to get the word out, what I want to do, my idea. And what it was, and like a lot of you was talking about, is communication. If you don't get the word out there to people, and talk to people, and educate people, you're not going to accomplish anything. And what's going on is, 3 years later, what started is, the DuBois County Community Foundation did the Lilly Endowment grant. And that finally came in on the second year I started this. Now, they gave this alcoholic and drug addict $250,000. You know, $250,000 to this punk, you know. But it wasn't the words I was saying, it was the actions I was taking. That's what they saw in me. Because I was getting out there and I was talking to people, communicating to people. Then once I knew we had that $250,000, I got a board of directors together, because I know when I do something on my own, I screw it up. I control it. So I got a board of directors, and the board of directors I got, I saw by their actions. There was people that cared. They wanted to help. It wasn't about publicity, get your picture in the paper. It wasn't about trying to get votes and everything else. It was people who cared. Two people that's on that board that I went to their house, and the judge might like this, it's the same judge that was revoking my probation, throwing me in jail, gave me 2 months probation time. It's the same probation officer that was revoking me, and I was on house arrest for many times. Oh, all kinds of crap. But they saw the action in me, and when I got sober, I saw what they was doing, because they was doing their job, but they was trying to help me, and I didn't want the help at the time. And I went to that judge's house, and he didn't call the cops on me or nothing. He knew what I was doing, and he invited me in. It's all about communication and action. Anyways, we're on the third year, and matter of fact, the word's getting out. More donors have stepped up, and now we're over $500,000 because people are donating money. And that's not even the community and citizens, the small businesses and the major manufacturing companies. They're all waiting for us to ask. We got volunteers already that wants to come in and help paint, do this and do that and everything. The community, what it was is I told people, everybody was crying, the community was crying to the city about the rotation, people coming in and out, getting arrested and stuff. I told the community to shut up. I said that it ain't the sheriff's problem, it ain't the mayor's problem, it ain't the judge's problem, it ain't the court system's problem, it's the community's problem. We need to come together on this and stop arguing with each other. You know, and I do get a bunch of feedback from people saying, well, we don't want that in our neighborhood. We still have that today. We don't want a halfway house in our community. You know, and I said, no, this ain't a halfway house, it's a recovery home. There's a big difference. The word recovery And I can understand people with halfway houses and stuff and everything. You know, they're thinking people coming out of prison, murder, rapists, sex offenders and stuff and everything else. But it has nothing to do with that. It's recovery. You know, so the community is supporting us. Next step, 100%. And we're just doing the men's recovery home. There's a group out of Indianapolis that's coming down to do the women's and stuff. And we're a level 2. There's 4 levels, and we're level 2. And level 2 only deals with action, what Cecilia said, doing the 12-step program, getting your butt off the couch and taking action. Be responsible, be accountable. Level 3 and 4, they're going to have more counseling, therapy, and all this other stuff there. Now, you know, I'm not against therapy or counseling, but if they're court-ordered stuff, they got to go. They got to go. You know, we're not going to babysit them. We're not going to tell them what to do. They got to do self-determination stuff and everything. But you know, we're going on our 4th year. We're working. We're looking to find land right now and start building stuff. And hopefully by next year we'll get started. And we're building for 30 people.
Wow.
But we're only going to start off with 15 because we got to learn from this. We don't want to throw 30 people in there and look at us, put us in the paper. You know, we want to start off with 15. We want to learn. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to learn from the mistakes. Then in the future, we're at a few more people, guys, and a few more and stuff. You know, but we got to learn too because this is new to Jasper too.
Right.
Thing with you saying that's reinvent the wheel. We stole ideas from House of New Beginnings in Corydon. We had their blueprints. We had their feasibility statement. We got their house rules and policies. You know. When you communicate with other counties and other people, they want to help you out so much. They're giving you stuff.
Well, they know how hard it was, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, if we can help, by all means, yeah.
But it all deals with communication, getting the word out, communicate with people. No matter if it's a person on the street, the mayor of Perry County or Tell City, you know. You got to communicate, you got to talk, you got to get out there and get the word out. And with CRSs, I'm a certified recovery specialist too, and we need that in Jasper also. So what I did, I started going around talking to people again. Sat down with Memorial Hospital, Live Springs, the mayors and everybody. Now we got a big meeting. Everybody wants it, but we're just trying to figure out how to do it. And if you don't know what a CRS is, it's somebody in life experience. They got a year of better sobriety and stuff. But it's going to benefit the whole town. Live Springs, it's going to benefit security centers, jails and stuff. But it's just getting out there and talking to people, communicating, working together. No matter what, if you're a white collar, blue collar, homeless person or rich person, it doesn't matter. You got to come together as a community because it has nothing to do with the mayor or the court system. It has to do with the community. And that's where we're at now in Jasper and stuff and everything.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, and I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you.
Lacey, I've got one more thing I just want to throw out there.
Yes, ma'am.
He's talking about the levels.
Mhm.
The Indiana Affiliation of Recovery Residences, which is the INAR, they're the ones that determine what level. There's 4 levels of a house, 4 being the best. But it doesn't have to be a level 4 house. It could be a level 1 or 2. So if anybody has any questions about what level and what they mean, I've got that here. That's all I have.
Great. And I will say, then I'm going to come to you because I was getting ready to talk about you. I will say that even though it's all good, even though Life Springs is not up here on the panel with us today, they have been very active in the Mental Health Coalition. I don't think that they've missed a meeting. Anytime we've asked for information, hey, do you guys do this? Maybe not in Perry, but they maybe do it in Jasper or somewhere else. Like, they have been more than willing to share with us, say, hey, yeah, we don't do that in Perry County, but maybe we could, you know. So I do want to say that. I know that they're here, and we don't want it to seem like they have been an instrumental part of the Mental Health Coalition. So with that, I'll let you go ahead and say what you wanted to say. Christina.
Introduce myself. I'm Christina, and I'm the clinic manager at Life Spring. I think. Oh, okay, that's fine, Teresa. No, and I do want to say, you know, we do hear you, and we care about this community so much. You know, we are a non-for-profit mental health agency, and you know, we won't turn away anybody for inability to pay. You know, we'd have a free and reduced sliding fee scale at our agency. We provide many free services for clients that need it every year. And so we do try to keep that, you know, just at a minimal cost. We hook them up with insurance benefits, you know, when they come in and see us. But we do hear you. I'm not going to take up a lot of time. But even through the meetings, you know, we've moved pretty quickly on. We have 4 staff trained, I believe 4, right, Barbara? 4 for Prime for Life, which is a prevention and education curriculum that we'll be able to offer to every 9th grader in Perry County. Hopefully beginning next semester in January. Also, we have the ability to hire school-based therapists and develop those contracts with the schools. However, just like you mentioned, recruitment is difficult. There aren't a lot of people going in the field. The whole state is seeing a shortage. So please bear with us. LifeSpring as a whole is addressing recruitment and retention every day on what we can do. We are looking at starting, we have provide outpatient treatment, obviously, but we're going to be starting an intensive outpatient treatment program early next year. So that will be 9 hours of substance abuse treatment per week for clients coming in. And wait lists, we do have the capability now to do open access clinics. So that is something in the works where I understand the wait lists at times. Right now we're probably scheduling a month out. And I know that's frustrating, so we are looking at open access clinics. So we do hear you, and we're trying to do our best to help solve the issues in the community. So,
Thank you for your work and for your transparency and for your willingness to step up when we ask you for information or, yeah, I'm going to see if we can do that. I mean, that's been their attitude, honestly, from the start is, well, we don't do that now, but we're going to see if we can, and I have faith.
I was just going to say, with what Christina said, with us, with the court system, they do help us get individuals in a lot quicker if they know they're coming from us, and we communicate and work well with them.
Awesome. Great. I'm going to call Myra real quick, and then I'm going to come back to you, Tom.
So just a thought that I've had sitting here listening to this, but also one of the barriers you guys talked about is recruitment. Can everybody? Okay, one of the barriers you talked about is recruitment. Have you guys talked to Ivy Tech to see if you can get people to start some classes in human services to try to fill those gaps? Because I know some of the gaps are not just with master's level professionals, but also bachelor's level professionals, that maybe that is something that could help fill that gap.
Right. I wish Aaron Emerson was here because we've kind of thrown around this concept of like growing your own and how do we get them in the schools, like when they're deciding where they want to go to college, what they want to be, how do we, approach them and say, hey, have you ever thought about this? And even like giving stipends for school, like to get them to go into that field and come back here. So Aaron, I'm sure we can get some more information out on that. We haven't moved very far with it, but I know growing our own and how do we keep them here, how do we educate them on the needs and keep them here is something that we really want to focus on.
I think having those classes at our local Ivy Tech would be a huge start.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing that I just wanted to talk about, since I am a mental health therapist, I used to work at, which was Southern Hills before, but also I work at the school as a school social worker. One of the working with kids is so rewarding, but it's also so frustrating sometimes because you see kids that really want the help, and then sometimes you have parents that will do everything they can to kind of go against any effort you make to try to help them. An example of that is like a child that needs to get into, that has extreme mental health issues, and you try to get them into a mental health facility. If you tell a parent that you recommend this, a parent can just not do that. Now, if it was an adult, when we used to do mental health assessments at the hospital, we could get the judge or the magistrate to put a hold on that person, and then they would have to go and have a mental health evaluation. There's nothing like that for a child. A parent can just decide not to take them. Again, you can make a DCS report, but that also is, longer time that this kid could be severely mentally ill and need that help right away. Working at the school, I worked for 3 years with one student in particular that we were trying to get into long-term mental health treatment, and they were in mental health treatment outside of the school, but as long as they were fulfilling that need, it wasn't exactly the mental health treatment that I felt like would be appropriate for what was going on. And sometimes it can take that long to get, the courts and stuff involved. So it's very frustrating whenever you have somebody, and I feel like, starting young, you talked about that, we could fill those barriers earlier and maybe not it end up into a substance abuse issue or something like that. But we just really have a lot of severely mentally ill children in the community that I think a lot of people don't realize.
Yep. Thank you, Myra. Okay, Tom?
I just wanted to thank Steve
Yes.
for coming down here. I visited the Grace House up in Crawford County. There's two of them. There's a woman's Grace House and a men's Grace House. And I know the county owns the property on one of them, and that couldn't happen without his help and the county commissioners in Crawford County and a lot of community involvement in it. And I want to thank Cecilia and Chase, both of them primarily, for coming out. I would call it, I'm also an alcoholic. Most people know I don't drink. And I tell them I'm an alcoholic, and they say you can't be an alcoholic because you don't drink. But basically, both of these folks on the recovery house is great. And I know that Billy Lane has done, on the religious side, an awfully wonderful job, all on his own and his churches, in trying to get a recovery house in here. I think he's working separate from Cecilia. But basically, that's the religious community just saying they wanted to help people, and that's been he's been doing that for 4 or 5 years, up until just recently, when they moved the residents out, because basically they weren't in compliance as far as the city was concerned. But basically, that's still going to work, I think, with the help of people who acknowledge they got a problem. So I just want to thank all you folks for even doing this, and the people showing up. And it's just gratifying, I'll put it that way. But sometimes, you know, we make fun of Mr. Bartell here, basically because he doesn't have any hair, but he's done an awful lot for substance abuse in southern Indiana, so just pat him on the back if you get a chance.
Thank you so much. We won't make fun of you too much. All right, Mr. Herwig.
The CEO of the hospital here, and I want to thank the hospital board members that have showed up tonight. So we've been participating with the coalition. We support the work. We'll continue to support the work, and the board is committed to providing additional resources next year. In 2022, we're putting that budget together now and working with our medical staff in terms of what kind of provider we will bring to town. We worked with Virtual Health in 2017 for the telehealth programs. We're going to continue to do that, and then we continue to provide, and I think we've shared within the coalition through our tuition reimbursement program at the hospital that we have some current providers now that are going to go back to become nurse practitioners, psychiatric nurse practitioners, and we're encouraging them to also return to town, whether they're working for us or perhaps LifeSpring or whoever, but to come back. But so we're committed. We appreciate the work, and we'll continue to work and communicate with you. So,
thank you, Brian. Laura.
So my name is Laura Taylor. I actually live in the community. I'm not from here, so some of you may not know me. I'm part of a grant called Second Chance Grant, and so the purpose of my grant is to stop the process of incarceration and the cycle of violence. There are a lot of services that are available to Perry County, including housing assistance and substance abuse assistance. There is actually a huge gamut of services that are available. My part in this grant is that I teach parenting and conscious discipline, which is the socio-emotional learning. I know that's the taboo phrase. That's what I teach. So the same socio-emotional learning that the teachers get for the kids at school, I can also teach parents. So if you have parents that have been involved in the justice system in any way, I am offering several classes for parents. Here's the issue that I run into. You guys are really excited, but no one shows up. So I'll teach the class. You tell me when and where, but we got to work on getting folks to show up. Because you're exactly right. You can only help kiddos at school for 7 hours a day. We need to make sure that when they go home, they are going home to the same safe practices that are happening at school at home. So I'm yours. You get people to me, and the answer is yes. And I'll leave. Also,
Oh, girl, we will get people to you.
not to toot Alan's horn, but Alan alone has been incredibly instrumental in actually getting that grant here in Perry County. Huge. If it weren't for him, we may not be as big. We are already in the jails in Perry County, already working with those folks, as well as the prison at Branchville. And Alan had a lot to do with that, even before I was involved. I am just really loud and vocal, so I told everybody. But it was actually Alan that got me here. So.
Thank you, Alan. We'll toot your horn a little bit, not too much. We know how you get. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Joe Branson. I am not from here either. In this room, and I'm sure that you've all seen me email, some of you too. I live in Evansville, and I'm with Intuitive Synergies. We are contracted through the Indiana Division of Mental Health and Addiction to help with prevention in the communities. I cover 12 counties, so the different things that you guys are talking about in here are things that I can help with. You know, whether it's, you guys are doing an amazing job with how you come together for this and linking people together in here, which is part of what my job would be, is to help link people together for the betterment of your community. But it's also about linking what's going on here to what's going on in other communities and bringing those, like what's going on in the other 12 counties back to you all also. And I also have what I do is bridge what's going on in the community to DMHA. So if they have information, whether it's trainings coming along, grant information, or things of that nature, I'm the one that's going to be distributing that information. And what is going on in the community, I will also be letting them know what's going on in the community so that they know that what their process is. They wanted somebody to be able to be on the ground working in the communities to get to know the people in the community, to figure out what's going on in the community so that they have a firsthand knowledge of that. So at any point, I know I've sent emails to a few people in here. I've met with a few people also, but if you would like to talk more, I'd be more than willing and happy to do so.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's very exciting. Anybody else?
I
Yes.
agree. My name is Amy Evans, and I work for Now Counseling. And we have an outpatient office actually in Spencer County in Rockport. So we offer intensive outpatient treatment there. We also have 2 transitional homes, 5-bed home for men and 8-bed for women. So if we can be of any service, please reach out to me or Jordan Wilby. A lot of y'all probably know Jordan.
Yep, Jordan came and spoke to the Mental Health Coalition just to kind of tell us about that model. And, you know, we want to get an idea of what works around us and not rebuild the wheel. So he came and spoke to us, and we really enjoyed listening to him and your guys' model.
Good. And I also would like to add that we do try to offer transportation because we do understand that that's a barrier. So if anybody needed services and didn't have transportation, sometimes we can provide those things to get them to group and then back home.
Okay, great.
So we have like set up a meeting point at like the IGA. We've done that. So it just kind of depends on where people are located. We try to be accommodating as we can.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
The one thing I would just like to say too, Lacey, before we finish up, is just that recently the Mental Health Coalition had these meetings, and Now Counseling came and talked about what they were doing, and we've talked with Life Springs about what they are doing, and then right around that same time, there was an Oprah grant that came available, and it was for recovery housing. And we had all the ideas and all the passion and absolutely nothing else ready to be able to apply for that grant. And had we had it ready, we could really be well on our way toward recovery housing in the community. So what we need, in answer to Steve's question, he kind of said, what do you need from outside the community? It's really more about what we need from inside the community in terms of that piece right now, which is really kind of shovel-ready project, a land or a place, a building that we got to work through zoning, we got to work through all kinds of stuff I don't even understand, but I read a lot about it when we were looking at that grant. And if we have those pieces ready, then maybe a year from now, if that grant funding becomes available again, we could be ready to jump on it. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to have this meeting too, was just to get this information in front of people, start talking about it, get our elected officials to understand about it and know about it, so that because you all know stuff that's happening in the community and properties that become available that none of us know about, and so that we can all be thinking, oh, hey, this might be the thing that would work for that piece, as we move forward.
Absolutely.
And Tara, to add to her real quick, I think one of the biggest obstacles also is that we don't have a professional grant writer. I mean, I keep hearing about anybody who knows how to write a grant is like, genius. But yeah, we don't have a professional grant writer, and I think the ARP money needs to train
Yeah, we do.
someone to do that.
We actually have 3 of us, but we have other full-time jobs as well. Yes.
On that note, on the ARP note, we do have ARP funds that are out there, and I want you to know that I hear you, and I understand. I even feel it inside my own family, so I'm there with you. But the thing that I know that I need, and I think that the ARP committee needs, which Luke's on with me, and so's Tom. They're here. We need a plan. We need something that's actionable. You talked about the Okra. It's the same thing for that. We need something that's actionable. And I'm willing to help with that, but I'm also that politician that's never went through it, right? And so I don't want to do the same mistakes that you saw. I don't want to repeat those. I want to bring people in that know what needs to be done. And from there, once we have a plan, we have money.
Right.
And we have the potential for other places for money too, right? So it really boils down to that. We need people ready to do some actionable things. And so we're there.
Yep.
It's just,
Let's
how do we
make a
take that
plan.
next step?
Yep.
Yeah,
What do we do next? Let's
Yeah.
make a plan. Let's get some funding.
I've actually reached out to a couple of realtors in town, and I have them looking for, one of them in particular has substance abuse in her family, and they are actually looking for some sort of housing, land, something that maybe even can be donated. She is working on that.
Yep.
Nice.
That would be fabulous. Anybody else want to chime in anything? If not, I think we're going to kind of wrap up. What? Oh, yes. If you did not sign in, please do that. Where's the clipboard, Teresa? It's somewhere around here. We'll make sure that you get it if you haven't gotten it yet. We also have copies of the slides from tonight, and then we have a resource guide that Brandy kind of put together that has some of the resource information that we spoke about this evening. So again, thank you guys for coming. We would like to do this again. We don't want this just to be a one-time town hall. I feel like it's good to get people together, and you don't know unless it's put right in front of you. And so the more people we can get this across to, the better. And so this won't be the only time that we do this. So thank you guys for attending, and reach out to us. We're more than welcome, or we're more than happy to involve everyone and get more data and everything. So thank you. Have a good night.
Hey, meeting after this. We got 10 minutes.
No way! Oh my God! I had to say something. I had to tell you. I've only been recently. And then I wanted to say something.